Have you ever been having a conversation with someone, and the person in front of you has been talking for a while, then they ask you a question? The panic rises inside of you as you slowly realize you haven't been listening for the last 5 minutes. You've been acting like it, nodding your head and smiling, giving good eye contact, but somewhere along the way, you got lost in your own thoughts. It happens to everyone. But in sales, it's crucial to train your brain to stay focused on what your prospect is telling you. With all the practice that goes into reciting your scripts or giving your sales presentation, what if I told you you're focusing on the wrong thing? I'll tell you why it's more important to be a good listener than it is to say all the right words today on Don't Just Sell. Did you hear what I just said? Most sales podcasts give you more tactics. This one proves you don't need them. I'm Rebecca Kilday, and this is Don't Just Sell, the podcast where your sales career gets easier when you quit selling like you've been trained and start selling like yourself. The other week, I was asked to talk to a group of college students about the importance of active listening in sales. I told the group's faculty advisor I'd be happy to talk about that, but maybe they'd be more interested to learn some of my sales theory I'd developed or to hear my thoughts on high-level negotiation, something more exciting. He said, well, we work with the students so much on what they're saying. I'd love for them to understand the importance of really hearing what the client is saying. And I realized he's right. 90% of sales training is crafting the right message and practicing how you're going to present it. But we never really talk about the discipline it takes to truly listen to what your client is telling you. There are usually two problems that come up when we talk about active listening. The first one is called rumination. This is what happens when your head is so cluttered with worrying about what you're going to say next that you miss it when something important is being said. And it's common when people feel pressure for a conversation to go well, or they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. The second problem is a phenomenon called selective hearing. This is when you subconsciously ignore information you disagree with or don't want to hear. For example, if a client is telling you about a real hesitation they have with your offer, you may be inclined to ignore that concern because you view it as a roadblock to getting what you want, when you should treat it as an opportunity to work through the objection. If either of those scenarios sound familiar to you, you're not alone. I work with clients who struggle with this all the time. The other week, I worked with a woman who sells billboard advertising. She told me she was struggling because she'd be caught off guard when her sale fell through after thinking the conversation had gone really well. Sound familiar? She felt like she was missing something, but she couldn't put her finger on it. So, I scheduled an appointment with her, just like I was a prospective client, so I could get an idea of what the problem was. We stayed in the role play for the whole meeting, and she walked me through how she would typically build rapport, present the advertising options, and how she would move toward the close of the sale. It was a fun exercise, and afterwards, I shared with her some of the things I noticed that might be getting in her way. And the first suggestion I had was to change the location of the meeting. She always met her prospects in a popular coffee shop, but the cafe was crowded and the seating was way too close together. I could tell she was distracted by all the activity, and honestly, so was I. Having a distraction-free place to conduct your meetings goes a long way in your ability to listen effectively. So set yourself up for success and find a quiet place to have your meetings if you don't have your own office space. The second thing I noticed from our role play is I could feel that she was impatient in the conversation. And this is common with sales professionals because we want to get to the part where we get to make our presentation. But making your prospect feel rushed will impact your ability to build trust with them. So I told her to ask one more. It's a technique I use when I can feel myself getting anxious to move on from a conversation. Instead of moving to the next topic, I force myself to ask one more question about what the prospect is saying. It doesn't even really matter what the question is. It's just to show that you are engaged. So if they're talking about their kid's dance recital, ask, what song did they dance to? If they're talking about their busy morning at work, ask, is that a typical pace for you in the morning? It's okay to ask questions that don't progress the sale. Settle in and let the prospect know you're genuinely interested in the details of their life. You're building trust with every answer they give you. So I know those two pieces of advice aren't groundbreaking, but guess what? After that exercise, my client closed several deals the very next week, and she told me she felt more in control of those meetings than she had in a long time. See, active listening is part of leading the sales conversation, not just reacting to it. Before I share more practical techniques to improve your active listening, if you recognize yourself in these stories, this is exactly what I work with my one-to-one coaching clients on to improve outcomes in their business. Click the link in the show notes to learn how to join my one-to-one coaching program called Sell Inspired Academy today. The absence of active listening shows up in today's sales cycles over and over again. I read an article the other day about ad dollar spend versus the sales process it feeds into. The author wrote about her recent experience with a SaaS company, and she said, I'd been seeing their ads for months, got a referral from someone I trust, and booked a sales call, ready to hand over my credit card. But I get on with the rep, and they're rushed. No curiosity, no questions about what I needed, just a sprint through the deck. I never received a follow-up email, not even an automated one. And she goes on to say in the article, I was the warmest lead they were going to see all week, and they let me walk out the door without lifting a finger. Meanwhile, this company is dumping thousands into paid ads, retargeting, and content to put themselves in front of buyers just like me. I really felt her frustration. This client was ready to buy, but the sales rep was so focused on meeting a presentation quota that day that they completely missed the mark. There are several ways this interaction went wrong, but if I wanted to just focus on the listening piece, here's some pieces of practical advice I would give. Slow down. Give your prospect the proper attention. This is not a race. Take the time to ask questions and listen to the responses. Y'all, this is the bare minimum. Secondly, if you're having trouble focusing in a conversation, give yourself little internal assignments. Maybe you commit to repeating phrases they say back to them for confirmation. Maybe you commit to ask one more. Whatever it is, give yourself little tasks to do throughout the conversation. This will help you stay more engaged. And finally, allow someone to surprise you. I know you have the same conversations with people about your offering over and over again, but don't allow yourself to assume you know what everyone's going to say. Go into the conversation thinking, I can't wait to hear what their unique take is about my offering. I love talking about and teaching sales skills because they have such a wide application. In many ways, sales skills are life skills. Active listening is one of those skills that will only help you in your relationship, in any situation. And when you truly pay attention to what someone is saying, and not just on what you need to say next, you elevate yourself from someone who just sells to someone who sells inspired.